Welcome to the Beat Sessions, your place for all things music. I'm your host, Mitchell Weary. Let's talk about the Black Keys and their record, No Rain, No Flowers. They released that on August 8th. This is lucky number 13 for the duo from Akron, Ohio, and their follow-up to 2024's Ohio Players, which is a very solid effort from arguably one of the best bands of the 21st century. I love that they collaborated with the likes of Beck, Noel Gallagher, and with Dan the Automator as well, along with a handful of other talented artists and songwriters to craft a record that I think really showcases what this band has done so well for over 25 years now. And No Rain, No Flowers is a record that I think continues this trend of consistent output while also extending their incredibly prolific streak of 5 records in 6 years since returning from hiatus. And this should be great news for the band and its fan base as well, but ironically, I think to a degree, both of these attributes seem to be somewhat problematic. Ohio Players is the first Black Keys record in 18 years to not crack the Billboard Top 20, which I know is certainly not the most important criteria to gauge the quality or success of any record. But what followed was definitely more disconcerting. There was a tour that was planned in support of the record that was suddenly canceled in May, and the band split with their management the following month in June. And in interviews that followed, the band cited consolidation of the industry as a catalyst for their failure, which they're certainly not wrong to posit this opinion and the frustrations that that element created. But they also conceded that poor ticket sales were a part of the issue as well. And I think to a degree you can dump that on management also. But I think it's because given the freedom and resources that artists have to create these days, what you're paying the suits for now more than ever is to promote, to get your name out there. But even Patrick admitted in the Rolling Stone interview that the band, quote, got a little bit complacent with the business shit because we've been so busy with the creative shit. And so we just got reminded that we have to pay attention to both things, end quote. Which brings this talking point full circle, because I would say that 15 years ago, the Black Keys didn't need any help standing out or selling records or promoting anything for that matter. They were on top of the industry with 2010's Brothers, 2011's El Camino, and 2014's Turn Blue, which was the band's first number one album in the United States. But I think that the culmination of all this success eventually led to Burnout and the need for Dan and Patrick to step away. Patrick stated that, quote, back then we were literally printing money and we were miserable, end quote. But I think it wasn't just the band that felt burnt out. I've had plenty of conversations with people in the last decade that say they love this band, but they just became too ubiquitous, that throwing on Brothers or throwing on El Camino at home was no longer satisfying because you could hear half of those records while eating dinner at the newest hip restaurant on a Friday night. Those songs, I would argue, sadly got so overplayed and lost their luster. And in the time frame that they were on hiatus, the music landscape changed quite drastically, as a matter of fact, with streaming services and platforms like TikTok building into what they are today. The Black Keys reemerged into a world order where back-to-back multi-platinum albums just means nothing to a younger generation. And I think in many ways, it seems that contemporary culture abandoned the Black Keys in this last decade, in the 2020s, despite their recent prolific output. And I would say that's another factor that is complicated. And even the band admits that, quote, we might be oversaturating the market, but it's like, while it's happening, you just have to do it, end quote. Personally, I agree with this sentiment. Strike the iron while it's hot. But one has to wonder if this is ultimately the the best approach to keep any fan of the band engaged. I'd argue that the success of the Black Keys over the years is the result of developing a sound that is truly and uniquely all their own. And this is impressive when you think of all the blues-driven garage rock bands that have existed over the decades. But you know when you're hearing one of their songs, and I think that's what it comes down to. And I think that even with the breezy retro pop turn that No Rain, No Flowers takes, it's a record that still sounds like the Black Keys. And 15 years ago, that was exciting. But I think this record is going to fall flat for the many music fans that find their music to be too formulaic these days, with the stylings of their best records feeling somewhat diluted by the recent output, which I think is pretty damn good. I think the records that they've put out since hiatus are consistent and very enjoyable. So with all that said, I think that No Rain, No Flowers is an enjoyable record, and I'm happy to see these guys still making music. It's kind of fun to think about what it would be like if this record was put out 10 years ago. And I admire the resilience that this record demonstrates and celebrates. It's declared immediately with the title and the title track serving as the album's opener. And this is a record born out of frustration and heartbreak, with Dan and Patrick doing what they do best in the aftermath of what should have been a productive year that sadly just fell apart. But they went back to writing and recording music, what they love, what they do. This is a record that also marks their biggest departure from that raw and rugged blues rock sound that longtime fans find infectious. And I think that that's also what makes this record so much fun. The duo recorded the album at Easy Eye Sound Studio in Nashville, Tennessee, recruiting heavy hitters in the realm of pop like Rick Knowles and Daniel Tashian to assist with songwriting and co-production, along with, again, a handful of other individuals collaborating with songwriting and production on this thing. Ohio Players was a record built on collaboration. And so in the midst of uncertainty, why not double down and just enjoy writing some songs with some very talented people? I like that they pursued this approach again. They've kind of always done that. Danger Mouse, etc. Ultimately, I think where fans will learn to find appreciation with this record, though, is the connection that we all have with Dan and Patrick on this one. If you live long enough, you're eventually going to have years where you're just like, what the fuck? But it's learning to understand that these challenging times make the good times exponentially more rewarding and more enjoyable. I'm looking forward to seeing the comments on this album review, because there is going to be a big difference of opinion with this record. I know that the disco-tinged Laurel Canyon pop rock vibe isn't going to sit well with everyone. And with the absence of hard rockin', ear-splitting licks and big propulsive drums, it's not going to shake the world up the way that previous efforts have. But I do think that over time, the easygoing spirit of this record is going to work its way into the soul of just about every fan, just at the right time. When those people, each and every one of you, starts enduring those periods of hardship, and the smooth sounds of this record just help you take a deep breath and to pick up the pieces and to right the ship and to get back to a better place. This thing leads off with its title track, No Rain, No Flowers. It's got this unique guitar riff that has an Eastern tone to it that opens things up. You get a little bass drum that counts things off to usher in a track with a very different tone in the lead riff, backed by a shimmering 80s pop landscape. It's pretty immediate right out the gate. There's funky bass lick that works in with this kind of like gallop and soft fluttering synth textures that, like, they might even be guitar as well too. It's tough to discern. The music mellows in the first verse though, with the vocals taking the baton from the lead guitar and less texture in the backdrop that's working. That Eastern element signals the turn into the chorus, which reverts to the build in the intro with the addition of some hand claps. And then that lead riff serves as a brief bridge into the second verse, which features ambient desert rock guitar play. The second cycle of verse and chorus is going to lead us into a brief coda that closes with that bridge riff. Your second track is entitled The Night Before. This one has got this drum roll to open things up into another bright and somewhat poppy track with jaunty rhythm, and it's kind of like a muted cowbell and really fuzzy guitars as well. The intro on this one is brief, with that cowbell element dropping out as Dan's vocals go to work in the first verse. It builds towards the hook, Everywhere I Go, bursting in gentle but also rapturous fashion, with Dan repeating the line over light screeching guitar. The second verse builds towards the hook, But I Feel All Right. But this time around, the surge isn't quite as energetic, particularly in the different guitar play that is happening on this song. The chorus is brief, playing off the sequence in the intro, and then the third verse is going to feature some organ-like synths with the rest of all of that established instrumentation. And it finishes with the chorus and a refrain of the title's track, leading into your third song, which is entitled Baby Girl. This one opens up with this kind of like spooky staccato piano. So it's like a bit vaudevillian as well. And then there's some droning synths that are playing. There's a brief drum fill that takes us into a track that's driven by jaunty, fuzzy bass, and secondary percussive elements. The piano becomes more prominent with the addition of vocals on this one, and the track shifting quickly into brighter melodic territory for a few bars. And then it reverts to the more ominous landscape after a few lines and works off a back and forth between these two segments as different guitar and piano signatures play off one another. And then around the 2-minute and 20-second mark, the guitars drop to enhance the feel of the rhythmic elements and the piano, with the drum fill reintroducing the guitars to take us out into the coda. Your fourth track is entitled Down to Nothing. Got this lead guitar with spaced out crashing staccato rhythm, and then droning organ with a bit of soul that is going to start this one off. And there's slow things down a bit on this track. There's some chimes as well to round out the overall dark, moody edge of this soulful song as well. The track shifts into kind of like psychedelic funk territory with thick rolling bass, staccato guitar, and gothic organ play. That lead organ is replaced with vocals in the verse, drifting along with kind of this like desert rock energy into a pre-chorus that builds on the momentum of the track, and a chorus that ultimately shifts into lighter melodies and a terrain with a hook that builds on the title. There's a second revolution of this structure that builds into wah-driven guitar solo and a refrain of the hook to nothing to finish this one out. Your fifth track is entitled On Repeat. It opens with galloping drums that usher in soft rolling bass, kind of got this like sinewy guitar play and staccato chimes that come together with this gothic bossa nova veneer. It's pretty unique. The verse opens with everything in the intro minus the guitars, which work in with different effect as the track continues to move through that verse and into the chorus. The vocals and bright droning synths lift the mood of the chorus once that hits, and it works towards the hook on repeat. It's a track that I think really sinks its teeth into that retro soul and lounge feel. It works through another verse and chorus through the hook that takes us into guitar solo territory at about the 2-minute and 30-second mark. And then the track finishes on that momentum with a reprise of the song's hook. Your sixth song is entitled Make You Mine. This one starts with some staccato piano that has lots of soul. And then you also get these fluttering effects that weave in and out of the backdrop of the track. There's a beat that drops with a thick bass riff to match, and then shimmering strings to give the track this massive retro soul mood with a tinge of disco as well. A lot of that feel just carrying most of these tracks, honestly. The strings cede way to the vocals as the verse begins, with the piano taking on a playful role throughout. And then the chorus hits with bright melodies and big harmonies that really take it more into disco territory. There's another cycle of the verse and chorus before the track drifts into a brief bridge that's just vocals and a bit of disco guitar and synth work. Then the track quickly finds its legs, moving into another run on the chorus and into a second instrumental bridge. Dan drops a few more lines before the track finishes the way it started and leads into your seventh track, which is entitled Man on a Mission. This one is going to open up with some searing guitar that takes the lead. There's also some galloping breakbeat percussion that soon follows that opening guitar. The percussion keeps the song grounded in a really intriguing manner, I would say, as Dan's vocals provide this, it's like a weightless contrast. It's really unique. I love what he's doing here with the vocals on this song. The chorus hits with heavier staccato instrumentation and a vocal hook that plays on the title. The opening segment serves as a bridge into the second verse, which features a touch more of guitar texture. And then after another go on the chorus, this thing slows down and works into a middle eight that's nothing short of, honestly, it's kind of like soft heavy metal. This is a really unique moment on the album, working with the big old blues riff that might bring around some familiarity. The lead riff takes over on its own for a brief moment to usher in a final go of the chorus and to take us into the coda, leading into track number 8, which is entitled Kiss It. A quick drum intro takes us into that psychedelic, soul-driven territory with upbeat energy that'll get you dancing along to it. This one is pretty catchy. The drums keep the form of the song while funky, spaced-out bass lick and a bright staccato guitar is going to work in, and it captures this great combination of soul, desert rock, and even a little bit of disco. The song turns up a bit on the hook, and they can change as it introduces additional lead guitar and some chimey texture, which is another thing that's pretty ubiquitous on this record. The chorus finds a bass driving in legato fashion with lots of fuzz, with a lead riff taking over for vocals to finish it out. The second verse is highlighted with the soft droning of a high-pitched organ element, and then as the track cycles through its structure, that lead riff works into solo terrain to follow. And then everything drops except for the vocals on the hook after that solo. There's a bit of rhythm and some synth textures before it all builds back together to finish this one out. Your ninth track is entitled All My Life. This one is going to open up with some gentle swimming texture that fades in and then abruptly takes a back seat to bright staccato piano notes. Got this funky mid-tempo rhythm that works to give the track a laid-back groove with some disco funk guitar play and shimmering synth textures that fade with the onset of Dan's vocals. Piano is prominent through the verse on this one, with bits of guitar that play in and around it. The chorus exhibits a boost in energy with this, it's like a muted horn element. It has to be the brass section that's at work here. And it really adds a lot of depth to the music on this one. The guitar becomes the lead instrument in the second verse, working into the chorus once more. And then the music fades to nothing but bass drum and chimes to bridge to the coda, with the hook All My Life driving one final burst of the music to finish this one out. Your 10th and penultimate track, A Little Too High. You got some mid-tempo bass drum and arpeggiated guitar to bring this one out of the gate, and then you got this gentle roll of bass that starts moving us into the first verse as well, like the way that joins in on the intro. This one mixes things up a bit, harboring more of a psychedelic classic rock feel that I think will feel more familiar to longtime listeners. This is a track that reminds me of the band The Guess Who. The chorus builds on soaring vocal melodies with a solid hook built on the title and gently screeching lead guitar. There's another cycle of the verse chorus before the song works into a solo at about the minute and 45-second mark, followed by a middle eight that leads into a second solo with a guitar that just sears a bit more on that one. The song closes with the chorus. This one is tasty. I'm a big fan of this track, and ultimately, I think after a few listens, this one might go down as one of the better songs in their catalog, period. And your final track is entitled Neon Moon. Your 11th track opens with gentle electric guitar and vocals with a bit of organ and pedal steel working behind both. The rhythm section hits just before about the 30-second mark, with the pedal steel really taking hold of the track. And this one talked about that Laurel Canyon soft rock vibe. This one really embodies that. The chorus is boosted with big vocals and arpeggiated electric guitar. And then the track does a second cycle before mellowing into a brief bridge and working into a twinkly guitar solo. The song closes with the chorus and a big refrain on the hook, tenderly fading out. The Black Keys really, doing what they do best. You hear that quote, it's out there. The best thing that the Black Keys are good at is just sounding like themselves. And there's a lot of bands out there that I've loved over the years that do that. They find their sound, they stay in that pocket, and then they explore with different elements throughout their career, not really finding any need to switch it up. I think that the Black Keys, it's that garage rock element. Like, it makes me think of a lot of different bands that were coming out around the early 2000s when these guys started themselves in 2001. You have bands like The Strokes. I know they're a little more post-punk, but like Interpol, one of my favorite bands. It's rare that you go to a live show and you see these guys jam. That's not what they do. Like, they're out to write just tight, concise compositions and to execute them. And I think that the Black Keys have always been a band that has operated on that level. I think that being a little more bluesy than a lot of these outfits, when you do see them live, there's more opportunity for them to jam, for the guys to kind of extend a track and flesh it out and to have some fun with it. But ultimately, this is an outfit that they have an objective with every record, to mix it up a little bit, but to make a Black Keys record. And I feel like they have successfully done that on this album. And in doing so, they've made a record that is different in the fact that I don't think they've ever done anything as pop driven as this record, despite working with the sounds of disco and hip hop and even a little bit of pop throughout the years. I mean, there's plenty of examples throughout the entirety of their catalog. But overall, what this record represents, riding the ship, trying to find some peace of mind, and working through a very difficult time, is something that I think, given a few listens, will start to appeal to the listener and will start to appreciate it. For me, I dug this thing right off the bat. After a couple more listens, I find it more and more enjoyable. I would say its fault might be that it is too easy to listen to. It's not necessarily as challenging as some of their better works, but if that's the biggest fault with it, then so be it. I think that going on tour now to support this record and ultimately to support Ohio players, to do what they set out to do last year, there's a bunch of really fun songs on this record that will add some diversity to the set list. And I look forward to checking them out, and to especially the song A Little Too High. I think that, like I said, that could ultimately go down as maybe not top 10, but if we're going to put together a list of like the top 20 best Black Keys songs of all time, I could argue where that song might work its way into that list somewhere. I'm going to give this thing a 7.3 out of 10, and I can't wait to go to Zia Records, my local record store, and to pick up the wax. And I hope you guys enjoyed this record. I hope you find this review helpful as well. Please like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel, do all the things to help me blow this project up in 2025, and stay tuned throughout the week for more album reviews. We'll see you next time on the Beat Sessions.